Hello there, Mandy here. Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart is not just a podcast. It's also a book, a free online grief group, and a one-on-one private coaching practice. If you are interested in learning more, visit mandykapehart.com to find out how restorative grief can help you heal heart, mind, body, and spirit. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 247, titled The Signs All Around Us with Jenny Robinson Clark. Grief often leaves us with a quiet but achy question. Where did they go? And are they still with me in some way? This conversation is one that resonates very deeply with me because not only are my guest and I very similar in our stages of life, but our stories of loss have a lot of little moments of alignment as well. In this conversation, we are exploring what it can look like to stay connected to someone after loss, not just through their memory, but through moments that feel personal, subtle, and sometimes quite hard to explain. My guest today is author Jenny Robinson Clark, whose book, Are You Here? A Story About Magical Signs All Around Us, grew out of her own experience of losing her mother and sensing that the connection would continue. Let's hear. Hey everyone, welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. I am your host, Mandy, and today I am honored to have Jenny Robinson Clark, a children's author of Are You Here? A Story About the Magical Signs All Around Us. Her work comes from our unfortunate shared loss of losing our mothers and the deeply personal experience of feeling that connection continue in beautiful but unexpected ways. So Jenny,
Mm.
welcome to Restorative Grief. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here too, and I'm sorry about your mom. It's not fun losing a mom
It's not. It's the
or
worst.
anybody, but
Yeah, I feel like losing a mom and having that in common with people, I always apologize and then say, like, I'm so grateful we found each other because this still doesn't make sense 10 years in for me.
me too. And it seems like yesterday sometimes,
Yeah.
and then other times it seems like forever ago. 2018, my mom passed away.
Yeah.
So,
It never quite becomes so real. So let's talk about the realness of it. Your book doesn't address your story directly, of course. It's the expression of the curiosity and the wonder of,
mm,
does this connection still exist? And it started, your loss became real at a very tender time for you. So 2018, paint the story for us of what that overlap of your life at the time and the sudden loss of your mom felt like.
well, yes, grief for me, uh, well, as a little kid, I was definitely afraid of dying and all of the things that involved that. And so I brought that with me like throughout my life, the fear of the unknown and the unfamiliar. And yeah, I would just sit in my room thinking like, what is death? Like, is it just blackness after we die? And so I had this like really not fun experience because my parents were doing the best that they could, but never really had a conversation with me about it. Um, and then the first person that passed away that was close to me was my grandma, and that was in 2010, I want to say. And I was living in Los Angeles, and I knew that I kind of had to face my fear, and so I flew back to her funeral and her celebration of life. I was the only one of my siblings that went because, again, growing up, our parents kind of like shunned us from experiencing death and funerals and all that stuff that no one really wants to talk about. And so I ended up going, and I'm so proud of myself. It empowered me. It was allowed me to like kind of face it. And when she was being buried, this huge gust of wind came, and that was like the first time I felt like that was my grandma. I know, like I'm getting chills thinking about it right now because there was no wind before, there was no wind after, it was like right when we were all gathered, putting her down to rest and just this beautiful gust of wind. And so from that moment on, I had a different perspective. And I then, a few years later, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was shocked, to say the least. I was in Los Angeles, and I didn't expect that phone call at all. You know, your parents call you and they're like, we need to tell you something. And you're like, oh, your heart sinks because you don't know what it is. And that's what it was. And so she battled breast cancer for 10 years. And I was in Los Angeles for most of it, but then my husband and I decided to move back to Florida in 2015 when we were pregnant with my oldest daughter, and that was the best decision we had ever made. I'm so grateful. It was so hard leaving the career that I had and the dreams that I thought I wanted to go back and be with my mom, and we did, and we just grew so close, and I really had no regrets. Like I told her everything that I wanted to say. And I think I just saw a post too on Instagram that was like, grief is all the unexpressed love that we have, for somebody. And so I'm really grateful for that time with her because I do feel like I was able to tell her everything that was on my heart and we just grew so close. But yes, she passed away in 2018 when I had a 6 month old and a 2 year old, about 1.5 year old. And so that was really difficult because I was being a mom and losing my mom. And so a lot of my grief and anger in my grief was during that time leading up to her death. I was just so mad. There was this big elephant in the room and everybody around me was trying to still believe in miracles. And I just like knew in my heart that, it wasn't looking good. And so that was really hard for me. But then when she passed away, it was like I have this weight lifted off my shoulders. I don't know if you felt this, but like she smiled right after her last breath, and then I was just bawling and just like raising my hands, and I knew like that she was no longer a part of her physical body, right? It was just like that was her shell that was there, and um, it was a beautiful moment for me because after that, I don't know, I just my senses were so heightened. I felt like my consciousness raised to another level, and I saw colors and heard noises and smelled things that I'd never smelt before. I was just so in the present moment because it teaches you, right? It teaches you to kind of how important it is to live in the present moment, especially with kids and your family. And so that 2018, yeah, was a hard year for me. And moving forward, 2023 was when I was feeling a little disconnected because I felt so connected right after she passed. There was these beautiful signs that were showing up, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I know, Mom, you're here." And I was like, so just talking to her still, and I could feel her presence. But then I think a lot of people say this after a couple of years, you kind of start feeling disconnected a little bit. And so I went to this retreat by Dr. Joe Dispenza, who links spirituality and science. And I had the intention to connect to my mom and heal my IBS. And I did both of those. And that was what catapulted me into writing this children's book, all the synchronicities that happened around that retreat. And we can get into that. But I'm talking a lot. And so I'll stop for a second.
To be
There's
fair,
so much
this is
to
your
say.
place to talk a lot. So,
There's so much to say.
and that's what I love to hear. You named so many beautiful moments in there, and you identified the the gamut of the emotional state, the openness of your spirit to notice beautiful moments that are happening in nature all around you. I love that visual of a gust of winds that we had awareness of that wasn't present prior and wasn't present after, to be such a moment of acknowledgement, whether we can prove a thing or not. And I think that's so important because there is that skeptical side of us that says, prove it. Um, to
Taking it
give
forward.
yourself permission
Hmm.
to lean into that must have been her, the possibility
Yeah,
of
right? Like,
that.
why would we not choose that? I don't know. For me personally, I'm like, why would I not choose that? I don't want to stay in my grief. I don't want to stay, I know I'm going to be carrying it with me, but I don't want to stay in the sadness and the lower frequency of what it brings up. And
Sure.
so I don't want anybody to be in that because our loved ones want us to move through it and find joy and happiness again.
Yeah. And acknowledging that those things can coexist. And as we recognize this is what the low frequency feels like, this is what heaviness feels like, being able to say there is heaviness that we make time to care for, and there's levity that we make time to celebrate. And both can be true in different parts of our being. And, in restorative grief, we tend heart, mind, body, spirit as both individual parts and holistic, important to integrate it with the whole, right? And so being able to understand that paradoxical experience, I feel is very complicated when you haven't experienced a great loss like this. And to have both your grandmother and your mom, two pivotal people, going through the transition into the afterlife or whatever comes next while you have small babies
Mm.
is one of the most um, vulnerable times
Mm.
of your life. How did you care for yourself while you were caring for these little itty bitties and being a partner? I know, big question. Solve it
I
for us,
know.
please, Jenny.
Please. Oh my gosh, I wish I had all the answers. But, I don't think I took care of myself. Like I told you, I was really angry, and I feel my second child, she was in my womb when my mom was the sickest, and I really feel like I transferred my energy into her. The trauma of the
Yeah.
experience that I was experiencing, because she has big emotions, and sometimes, she gets really angry, but then she has the biggest heart. And, I just, looking back now, and being more aware of how important energy is, and how our energy can transfer into somebody else's energy and vice versa. And I see that now, that I just, yeah, I don't feel any guilt, because I know I was doing the best that I could, during that time. But it was hard. It was so hard. And my husband, hadn't lost his mom, and he was trying to comfort me. And I'm like, you don't know how I feel, like, you are so sweet and trying to, you know, help me through this. But I'm like, you have not experienced it. And that's hard too, And so when you do meet somebody else that has experienced that pain, it's an instant connection, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and again, my husband was doing the best that he could, and he loved my mom as much as I did, and she was his biggest fan. And so, yeah, it was hard. But I think my self-care, like, I did not hide any emotion. And I've never been like that my whole life. So I'm an open book, and I wear my emotions on my sleeve, if that's the term or the saying. But so I talked to my kids about it, right? They saw me crying, they saw me upset, but I would tell them, like, why. And, I wasn't trying to hide any of my feelings. And that, I think, really helped. And I don't want my kids to hide their feelings and their emotions around grief, or really anything. I want them to be open with me. And so I think I could pat myself on the back and say, I think that's the best that I could, during that time.
Yeah. I actually think that's significant self care, just to reaffirm what you were going through, to be able to demonstrate for kids in an age appropriate way. This is normal.
Mhm.
Emotions are normal. Experiencing heaviness is normal. Talking about is normal. Having low moments is normal. And I use normal very loosely. Like, these
Mhm.
are expectations that we might have and we might not, but it's all morally neutral. It's okay. This is
Mhm.
part of that humanity, that experience that we go through. And to be able to care for yourself in a way that you are honest with what you're carrying, with the people around you that see you the most, that is such a gift, because we've experienced how many people in our lives that we can see the repression of their emotions just pouring off of them, or it's all coming out as anger, but in a violent way, not just expression, but like targeted anger. Those moments of a lack of care built up over time turn us into these very unfamiliar people. And so to recognize that you weren't who you necessarily thought you'd be as a young mom, but were able to express yourself and transform through
Mhm.
it, means, yes, you're carrying this grief with you, but you also are teaching this next generation how to tend to grief and to grievers in themselves and in the people around them, whether they see it or not.
I had to do something different than what my parents were doing. And again, they
Mhm.
weren't doing anything, bad, or like, they were doing the best that they could. But I didn't want that for my kids. I didn't want them to ever feel the way I felt in my room alone, crying and not knowing. I want my kids to be curious and ask questions. And so I ask questions. I want to be curious. Um, and these are all things that I've learned, through this process. And it's all been really helpful for me. Even just Joe's work, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, in, navigating all these emotions and feelings, and releasing them and letting them go. And yeah, it's been beautiful. It's been challenging and hard, but to evolve and grow is all we can do.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I'm like, growth and change is our non negotiable. to my
Mm.
own child who's in middle school now. And so I'm like, do you choose to go with it or do you choose to fight against it? And because in some instances, fighting against it is good, right? Butterflies need to fight to get out of their chrysalis to build their own muscles to fly. So fighting is not bad, but choosing your moments and recognizing like, what is this unto is that's a whole nother conversation we could have.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I really want to honor this beautiful book that you've created. When I first received a copy of it, the artwork struck me so viscerally. I wanted to honestly wanted to rip pages out and put them in frames because they're just so gentle and beautiful and soft.
Thank you.
How did you decide, okay, I need to put all of these wonderful experiences and moments and messages and lessons that I've experienced into a book, but into a children's book? Because you could go both ways with this, right? You could go self help novel style and you can go approaching the youth. The
Well, that
youth.
the youth. Well, like I said at that retreat, there were so many synchronicities. And the first woman I met at the Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat was this woman named Heidi, and she gifted me a children's book. And she said how curious it makes her and how much she loves children's books and how that's really all the books that she reads. And she was in her 60s, and it was such a beautiful thing. And she gave me this book, and I put it in my suitcase, not knowing that when I got home and I was reading through it, that it was actually, I know my mom sent that woman to give me this book, and this message was for me, and it was a story about the endless potential in all of us and how we still have a gift in our heart and that we should share it with the world. And I cried for days when I made that realization. And then just a couple days later was when I got this download from my mom of these words that became "Are You Here?", which was first my husband wrote a song called "Are You Here?" with the words that I had written, and we had this song for a year. It was first called Dragonflies, and then we changed it to "Are You Here?" to match the title of the book. But we had this song, and it healed me in so many ways. And I just was at the beach one morning and I had this thought, what if I turn this into a children's book because of, my challenges as a child through grief and death and all the things. And being a mom, I was like, this could help so many families. It could be such a beautiful tool and reminder that the love is not never gone. It's still there. And there's just this thread that connects us, and our loved ones want to still be connected to us. And so that's the thought I had. And from there, I just texted a friend from LA who I knew wrote a children's book. She introduced me to her publisher that she used. And then it was this snowball effect of just like the synchronicities and the unfolding of it was so divinely guided.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, it healed me in so many ways. I would be doing a disservice to humanity if I didn't at least try to get it out and see if it could heal somebody else's heart in the same way.
Yeah, I love that so much. First of all, by the time this airs, I hope we have already found Heidi. I saw your
Yeah,
post the other day and I was like, yes, Heidi,
I
come out of the
know.
woodworks. What an inspirational human to say, I only read children's books because there's so many beautiful ones that have been, there's so many. Okay, let's be real. There are some duds that are just being published to make money, which is great. Do
Mhm.
what you need to do. But when you find a children's book that genuinely shows up as so authentically approachable for kids and adults,
Mm.
they really are life changing. And I think they're kind of like summaries of like the Spark Notes, Cliff Notes thing for longer books when we didn't want to read. Can you give me the meat, the point of it, and let me create the meaning for me? That's such a like gentle way to introduce yourself to hard concepts. I'm going to steal that piece for myself as well. But I also, like you said, like all of these synchronicities about expressing yourself and recognizing what is moving. Even just the other, I guess it was just this morning, I was thinking about how our younger selves had an understanding of the world and grief and how to move through it that as adults we've complicated and we
Mm.
take too much responsibility on and
We
we
overthink and yeah.
overthink and decide we have too much power and I can change the world, contrasted with I have
Control.
no power and I'm helpless. What an innocent approach to grief to present it through nature and impermeability and beauty.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do agree that, children are so connected. Like I feel like as we come into this world so connected and so pure, and
Yeah.
then, I don't know if it's around the age 5 to 7-ish, where other people's ideals and beliefs and things just start kind of engrossing on our purity. And so, and nature as well for children. I feel like they can get so grounded in nature. Anybody can get so grounded in nature. God created such beauty around us. And so I do feel like people will connect to that aspect of the book. And we were at a signing in Jacksonville, and a woman walked in and she said, I saw this book on my daughter's nightstand, and it touched me so deeply. She's like, I feel so silly. I'm in my 60s and I'm coming to buy a children's book. And I'm like, no, that's exactly why I wrote this. I wrote it for me and I'm in my 40s. So, like you were saying, it's not just a children's book for kids, it's for all ages. And the message can touch anybody who reads it, I believe.
So I'm curious, that simple but very profound question of are you here? What
Mhm.
does that question hold for you now as you move through the world?
Mm. Now, when I ask it, I know. I know. When I was asking it before, there
Mm.
was still a little bit of a disconnect. And I just, like you said, our analytical brains kind of get in the way of like, oh, is this real? Is this real? And then the more that she showed up and sent me these signs, the more I have realized that she is most definitely here.
I've always called them winks from the heavens because
Mhm.
I think you're right, a rational part of us that gets in the way, and we are asking our logical scientific brain to suspend disbelief for a moment.
Mhm.
Um, for reasonable things. And I believe that's really where we get to an invitation in your book to be playful again, to be creative, to be willing to believe something more than what our eyes can see, to believe that this ladybug that landed on my arm is, in fact, a hello from our friend who passed away. And this seashell that, why is there a seashell here, is a gift from my mom because she knows I have jars of them everywhere, right? And these little things that we are able to tune into when we recognize they're important to us can
Mm.
be such a balm on that weariness of maybe not feeling stuck in the sadness, but even just feeling the heaviness of it and not knowing how to move toward a more grounded approach. So I'm curious for those of us listening who might feel really skeptical about this or might say, yeah, I've asked for signs and all I see are declarations of war and car crashes and horrible news stories and disappointment and then job like more and more loss and loss and loss. What does it look like for someone to do this work with themselves and to try and stay grounded in little tiny ways? What's a little invitation you might offer to someone?
Thank you for that question. I believe if you can get yourself into something creative, something that you love, take a walk in nature or draw if you love drawing, or sit quietly for even just 5 minutes so that you can see. Because, right, like when we're getting inundated with all the negative, there's no way we're going to be able to see the signs or anything positive if we're focused on the negative, right? And so it's like we have to open our hearts and our minds to that possibility. And the way I get there is in meditation for me, um, is when I can turn my brain off and I can connect to my heart. And that's for me so powerful. Um, I am an overthinker, like through and through, and it does not serve me in any way. And so I have to work really hard at not overthinking and not um, allowing every time I look at social media to see something else that's going wrong in the world. There's still so much beauty. There's so much beauty still in the world. And if we can just try to change our focus and look for the beauty and not look for the pain, I think that would help humanity too if we could all just get into our hearts. And if could you imagine if we all focused on the beauty? Like, I feel like we could all maybe change the world. I don't know.
I love it. I love questions of what can you imagine would happen if, in the sense of inviting individuals to connect more relationally in their
Mm-hmm.
families, one on one, communally, on a bigger level, because we often feel so pressured to connect globally and to understand everything. And that really leads to disconnection from the individual, which is where we have our strength, which is where we have our intuition and our wisdom and our authority to show up for ourselves and for others. And I think what's so beautiful about your book is it invites you back into that relationship with yourself and the noticing that maybe we just get a little too blinded by the bright, shiny lights of all the big things that are going on that we miss the little glimmers in our daily life.
Mm. Yes, and I think I set my intention for 2026 to be curious. And I do feel like, we've said that word a lot in here, but the curiosity and the asking the questions can really help to opening your mind um, to the unfamiliar, the unknown. And so, yeah, I just challenge you guys to maybe ask more questions, open your heart just a little bit. Um, and you will receive the signs. I know it. And maybe at first you'll be like, no, that's not a sign, no way. But then ask
Totally.
again, and then you're like, oh no, that's not it either. And then ask one more time. And then maybe by the third or fourth time, when you do see a sign, you will start believing.
Yeah, I almost can sense the hesitation from people who are worried about dishonoring their grief by being curious and choosing to receive comfort from any sign that they might receive. And I just want to echo what you said. You are receiving permission from Jenny personally through this book
Yes.
to be hopeful and to create some meaning that not only honors your grief and your experience, but also honors the relationship that remains. And the way that you navigate that remaining relationship is permission to move toward other people who are grieving and through other experiences that you might have access to. That level of curiosity really does break through the suspicion and the disbelief that
It's not possible.
healing is not for you, the disbelief that or that healing is for you, the disbelief that says this is always going to feel this way, rather
Right.
than recognize this is going to have 5 years where you feel really connected. And then you realize, oh, I am as detached as possibly I could be. Things shift, right? This is
Not linear. Yeah. Nothing
not
is
linear at
linear.
all.
It's just like up and down and in and out for me too. Yeah, for everybody. So yeah, you are not alone out there if it's hard for you right now or if you can't move through it. Because I've been there, but I think our loved ones want us to move through it. And so just give yourself time and space to feel what you're feeling, but then also get on the other side of it. They're rooting for you, they're guiding you, they want you to live a full and happy life. And I know that to be true. I know my mom wants me to be living fully. She doesn't want me to be stuck in my sadness and in my anxiety and all the things that come up. But, we're human, so they're going to come up. But again, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point to make because you named something there that often is treated as a platitude to people who are fresh in their grief. Your
Mm,
mom would want you to be happy, right?
mm,
And that phrase, when offered to a stranger, can feel almost like a threat, like what you're doing is not what would make your mom happy or what you're doing is wrong. And to hear it in this context is such a different invitation because what you're naming is the person that you lost also loved you as fiercely as you loved them,
mm,
in theory, right? We can say in theory. If that's true, then is it possible that they still believe that beautiful things are possible for you, that they
mm,
still recognize, hey, you're a fully formed, nuanced human that's going to have good days and hard days?
mhm.
What does that look like to live out a life that is permission, like given permission to be complex?
Thank you for asking those questions.
Yeah.
I feel like that is really big in all of this is, yeah, what would it look like? That's awesome. I'm gonna
Well,
start
okay,
doing
I
that.
have one
Yes.
last question about the book itself. I know you had this illustrated by a beautiful artist, Elizabetta. Is that how I say her name?
Elizabetta Fantone.
Elizabetta Fantone. She's stunning. So
Yeah.
if anybody is falsely inspired to use AI for your book, I strongly encourage you to find Elizabetta and pay whatever you can.
Oh my gosh, she's incredible. Like she brought it to life. You should see the sketches I sent to her
Oh,
with
I
my
bet.
vision of it. And she really brought it to life. She is so talented. She's from Canada. She lives in Miami now.
Mhm.
And she is an artist through and through. And
Yeah, these.
her dad had passed away 6 months before
Oh,
I
wow.
asked her if she would be willing to do these illustrations. And so she said he came in so many ways, in her
Wow.
dreams during these illustrations. And so I thought that was a really beautiful synchronicity as well.
Yeah, no kidding. So what I was going to ask is,
I'm sorry.
oh, you're fine. With all of these stunning images, is there one that stands out in your mind that you were just like, oh, okay, yes, if I could only have had one image for the whole book, or if I had to make a huge poster that calls
Mm.
this the book, not the cover, obviously the cover is wonderful, but something inside that really just brings you back to the moment that you were writing or that you decided to do the book that really resonates still.
Thank you for that question. I have not received that, but I think for me, the last page of the "I am here, I heard your prayer, I am in everything and everywhere," and all the signs that just show up, and her holding the little girl in her hands, just reminding her that she is all around her, in everything and everywhere. It's really that is my favorite page for sure. I mean, all of them honestly are my favorite page. The rainbow in the sky. My little kids love the rainbow that forms up in the sky with the beautiful rainbow colors. And I mean, it's so hard. There's so many Easter eggs in here too, like on the little houses. It was there's addresses of my grandma's house, my dad's house.
Mm.
The clock on one of the pages is my mom's birthday. And there's so many little Easter eggs in here that, I mean, honestly, yeah, I don't think I have a favorite. They're all just incredible. And
They're
all
all
the
filled with meaning.
Yes, they're all filled with so much meaning. So, I can't choose but the last one because it just reminds us that my mom is still with me
It's a good summary,
and
the
all
last one.
around me.
Yeah,
Yes.
beautiful. Well, Jenny, this has been wonderful. We could talk for
Thank
hours,
you.
obviously. Where can people find you? I get a copy of your book.
Mm.
How do you want people to take this for themselves and learn more?
You can go to my website, jennyrobinsonclark.com. You can purchase it anywhere you buy books online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. And also, I am really wanting to support the indie bookstores. So I've done a couple signings at some indie bookstores around the US, and um, the more that we can get them to purchase it, in your area, the better for them, because I love supporting them. And I do feel like, it's coming back, going into your local bookstore and grabbing a coffee, and it's just really important. So, anywhere you buy a book, you can purchase it. Thank you so much. And I hope that after you read it, you are left with hope, peace, and love in your heart.
Thank you so much, Jenny. This has been such a joy. And just as a side note, if you do go to jennyrobinsonclark.com, you'll get to see a picture of your mother.
Oh,
You are
yeah.
her spitting image. What a
Oh,
knockout.
thank you.
You
I don't know if
always,
it's video or
oh,
not,
thank
but I
you.
always keep them here when I do podcasts so that I can, just have her with me. But
I love it. I
yes.
love it so much. That is something that always, and as we get older, will continue probably to catch your breath when you like side glance in the mirror and realize how much you really
Mhm.
like recognize what you're seeing, and then realizing, oh, that's me. Oh, okay. We look very similar.
Yes. I have three sisters too, and so whenever I see some of my sisters, I'm like, "Oh my God, you look like mom right now, so much like
Yes,
mom right now." So
it's a
yes,
gift. It's a
it's
good
a
thing.
gift for sure.
Well, okay. Now we're done. Sorry, everybody. We're done.
Now we're done. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to episode 247 of Restorative Grief. Today's conversation with Jenny explored what it can look like to stay connected to someone we've lost, how grief and creativity can move alongside one another, and the complicated, sometimes quiet ways that we make meaning after loss. I highly encourage any of you who were even the slightest bit intrigued to check out Jenny's work and pick up your own copy of Are You Here? A Story About the Magical Signs All Around Us. You can check out the links in the show notes for access to Jenny's work and to learn more about her as well. If this is your first time joining the show, I'm just so grateful you're here. I would love for you to subscribe and leave a review and consider becoming a patron of the show. Supporting the show keeps this work going and unlocks bonus episodes for you alongside reflective workbooks to deepen your own grief practice. And as always, before we go, one last thing. Please remember The only solution to grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.